Hi, welcome to the Leadership During Crisis Online Summit series. Thank you for taking your time to watch these episodes. Please remember to subscribe at our YouTube channel, follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook under Leadership During Crisis. Why or what led to the crisis in your organization or department?
Okay, so this was when I was working for a global MNC. And what happened was we had a business crisis. Two of our markets, which account for more than 50% of the overall business revenue, had suddenly nosedived. So because of that, coupled with the fact that we had a new leader that had just joined the company just barely 6 months into this role. And so because you have a business crisis that is looming and you have a new leader that is coming in, it is a cocktail of either we can break through from the crisis or we can sink low into the crisis.
So now, what brought about that business crisis, if it's okay to share?
Sure. I think there were two components to this. The first one was the fact that the business, or I would say the brand in the two key markets, suddenly the consumers felt that the brand wasn't talking to them anymore. So the younger consumers were not purchasing. And coupled with the fact that, I don't know if you recall, I think it was in 2011, there was that huge Japan earthquake, which led to a tsunami. And then there was a nuclear accident at the Fukushima Daiichi plant. And because the brand manufactures its products in Japan, so there was not just your consumers are not coming to purchase from you, but because of the fact that people felt that, hey, I'm not so sure now if your products are contaminated. And then, it led to this whole perception that I'm not sure if it's safe to purchase these products. So it led to almost like a nosedive in the business for us at that point in time.
So, from that perspective, I'm sure there were some crucial steps that were taken then to overcome the crisis, even if the leader was only 6 months into the job.
Yeah, definitely.
What were some of the steps or things that you all did to actually overcome the crisis at the time?
Okay, so I'm just going to share what I felt that leader who was new did, which I witnessed that I felt really turned the situation around. I think firstly, the fact was that even though he was 6 months into the role, throughout the time when he first joined the business, he already started building trust with the organization. And I think as a new leader, it's very important to do that. And I think what also helped was the fact that he didn't come from a beauty brand. He had come from a different category altogether. And so which meant to say that whenever he spoke to people, right, whenever he had conversations with people, he had conversations with a broad spectrum of people because he was trying to really understand, number one, what was going on with the business. Number two, when he was asking questions, it wasn't with the intent to judge or I'm trying to see whether or not my viewpoint is right. He was asking questions with the intent of really seeking to find out, what are you doing in your role? How are you contributing to the business? What can I do to help? So I think that was critical in building trust up front in every conversation that he had with the team. The other very important thing that he did throughout the conversation was, especially when the crisis happened, and he had a completely different way of doing things. The strategy changed completely, and there was definite pushback. But what was important was that throughout the conversations that he had, he was actually prepared for people to ask those tough questions. He was prepared to answer, why did I make this choice? Why am I putting forward this strategy? And not doing it in a very defensive way. It's more of, I really want to understand. And if you ask me that question, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I've changed the strategy. The second thing was that he had very clear and focused communication. So at that time, I was in the learning and development side of the business. And I remember in a conversation that I had with him, he had only one clear mission, and it was, we need to increase the number of new users to the brand. That's it. That is that one rallying cry. And so I remember I asked him, why just one? How about those existing customers? What will we do with them? What is the strategy for that? And he told me, Wendy, you must understand that I am dealing with an organization that has more than 6,000 people. If you include the people at the counters, the people at the manufacturing plants, the local sales teams, product supply, marketing, that's almost 4,000 to 5,000 people. And if I had more than one message, that message might be lost in translation. So I want to make it very clear that there's only one rallying cry. Every decision that anyone makes, no matter which level you are at in the organization, no matter which part of the business you represent, you understand that every decision you make towards that one rallying cry, which is to increase the number of new customers that come into the business. So I think that was the second thing that he did really well to turn kind of the tide. The third thing I remember that he did, which really has now changed the trajectory of how the brand is now marketing itself, is the risk-taking approach. So he tried many different ways to kind of change the perception of the brand, of it being very old, to something that would kind of attract, right, the newer, younger consumers that he was looking to target in that one rallying cry. And I remember he had come up to me and a group of my colleagues, and he showed us this video that he was planning to push out. And he told me, what are your thoughts about it? And then we looked at it and then we said, controversial, but not too bad, I don't know, it could be a hit or a miss. And I remember he said very clearly, he said, you know what? If you guys don't have any extreme negative, violent objection to it, I am going to go ahead with this video. We're going to launch this. And no matter what happens, whether the result is good, whether the result is bad, I'm going to take full responsibility for that. It was quite interesting because I've never heard a leader verbalize that I am going to take accountability for this. First, he asks you for your feedback, right? What do you think? And he says, okay, great. Now, this is what I'm going to do. And whether the result is good or bad, I'm going to take full ownership and accountability for it. And then he left. He went ahead, he did it. And that video, although controversial, right, it had about 10 million views in 10 days. That also kind of really changed the way that the brand now approaches kind of its brand philosophy. From a more product features and benefits standpoint, it went into a more human branding philosophy. But I think there are two things that he did really well. And I think in every town hall meeting, he always goes back to that, reiterates that rallying cry. But to ensure that there is buy-in, right, because there was pushback, it's a completely different strategy that we had done before. Because what he does is he says the rallying cry, okay, he kind of susses out, listens, like, okay, what's the feedback like, what's going on the ground. And then in the next town hall meeting or in any kind of large-scale event with the team, he then tweaks it, his message. And then he goes in again, okay, this is why we're doing this. So I think that is also important as a leader, right? Your communication, because I think he was very, very clear in his head why he was doing it, why he felt that it was necessary to have this change. The second thing he did was, it's almost like I launch this, I say this, I hear what the organization is feeling about it, I get that, okay, I'm going to tweak my communication again. Sometimes we always just stick to that one form of communication because in our heads we say, yes, this is where we need to go. But you must understand that human beings, right, all of us, when it comes to any change, it's not just rational. We have that emotional luggage that we also bring with us into any change. And so I think what he did was he was able to kind of almost like, you're doing risk-taking. You launch something, you experiment. Okay, it doesn't work that way. I'm going to communicate another way. But he brought that to the communication style. So I would say that, number one, he did that really well. And he took every opportunity at a town hall very seriously. He actually had rehearsals because I knew the communications manager that he worked with. And he really made sure that every town hall he prepared for it because he wanted to ensure that his message was targeted and concise.
What are the key lessons that you have learned that you've brought on into your own entrepreneurial experience in terms of overcoming crisis, like the COVID-19 crisis that we have currently?
So I think the one thing that I learned from him, right, was, you remember he had two things he did really well. One was that single rallying cry, meaning to really take action. And also the second thing was, the way he communicated as well. You observe, you see what's going on, and then you take the action. And so it's kind of similar to fighter pilots. They are actually trained to think right, with what we call the OODA approach, right? So O meaning you orient yourself first. So you kind of identify what the opportunities, what the problems. And then the other second O after that would be you orient yourself. You identify what are some of the options that are available for you. Then after that, it goes on to D. You decide, right? Which option should I take? And then A, you take action. So this OODA approach, I believe, is actually critical as a mindset to have. And it shouldn't come about during just a crisis. Actually, mindsets are things we should be consistently, training our minds. Because they say, right, when shit hits the fan, you sink to, let's say, your natural default style of leading, of thinking, of overcoming things. So I think upfront before that, it's important to already start thinking like that, whether you're in a crisis or not in a crisis. So I thought that OODA approach, which is I'm going to see the surroundings, launch it, take the action, and then tweak it, and then I will come back to OODA again. So almost like a circular way of experimenting